welcome to another show. I Can See That podcast. Hey, Matt's handling business. If you're outside of Tampa Bay area or outside the state of Florida, we've got a major hurricane on the way. So Matt is, running around doing his hurricane prep for a couple different properties. So we'll miss Matt, but we'll hold it down here. Preston Jackson, Big County Preps, and Derek with my man with QwikCuts. Today, very important day. FHSAA just dropped their weekly rankings, and the reason they're so important is this is how teams get seeded into the playoffs. Now, this is their preliminary ranking, so we got a couple more before the end of week 11 where they'll come out with a final ranking so teams will know where they seed. But let me explain quickly. 32 teams amongst 7 different classes that are split into the region, all right? You have regions 1 through 4, 1 at the top of the state, 4 at the bottom of the state, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll get 8 teams per region. 8 teams per region. 8 times 4 will get you your 32 teams. Now, how do you get one of those 8 spots? Number one, most importantly, you win your district. If you win your district, you're automatically in one of those 8 spots in your region. And then number 2, you're at large, and that's where those rankings come in. So you take your 4 district champions within each region. You have 4. That gives you 4 remaining spots. You'll get 8 teams. Amongst those 8 teams, they'll be ranked according to the FHSAA rankings that come out weekly. So just because you are a district champ does not mean that you'll get 1 through 4 seed. You could be a district champ and be an A seed, but at least you'll have a seed. So just wanted to explain it off the top how teams make the playoffs. Now, let me jump right into it. We're going to have a little fun. Derek and I are going to we're going to look at it from the top. Just looking at this, and if you're looking for the rankings and where they're located, if you go to FHSAA.com, click on football. Once you hit football, there's a tab at the top right. It says rankings. You hit on the top on the rankings tab, and you'll get your spreadsheet that you can then filter from there. All right, so just overall, number 1 seed amongst all classifications is Nice. Ponte Vedra, Florida, up in that Jacksonville area, probably more so known there, Tim Tebow's school. So Ponte Vedra is the number 1 seed overall, followed by Arnwood, Lakeland, Bradford, and Venice. Those are your top 5. So area teams for us, Arnwood, Lakeland, Venice. 3 of the top 5 teams are coming from our coverage area. Derek, any observations from those 3, man?
Obviously good teams. There are some omissions, some teams that are not in there that typically are, just in that first go around, you're missing a program like Aquinas right off the bat in their rankings. And that's probably reflective. I mean, they not sure if they are what they used, are typically are every year in and year out. So this could be a real good opportunity for one of the teams that have potentially, had some issues getting past them. This may be their year. So that would be just one thing right off the bat to notice, some of the teams that aren't necessarily in there. And, seeing Nice up there, tradition rich history right there out of, St. Aug area, St. Augustine. But yeah, it's good to see. But yeah, what are you thinking?
Now let's go to strength of schedule, which becomes the big part of how your rankings are, how these composite rankings are put together. So a number of years ago, I can't remember how, but the FHSAA really put together a really good formula for how the team's strength of formula was going to come about. And it's based on not only their opponents, but the opponents' opponents and the opponents of those opponents. All right. So they get this calculation, and then you get your strength of schedule. Well, overall, from the state, the number 1 team with the toughest strength of schedule is American Heritage Plantation. Okay, followed by Buchholz out of Gainesville, followed by Treasure Coast out of Port St. Lucie, and then Chaminade Madonna at 4, Lehigh at the top 5. Now, Venice is in the top 10. They come out at number 10, toughest strength of schedule in the state amongst all classes. All right, so that's pretty doggone good. Now, we're going to jump into Class 6A, and we're going to hyper-focus on regions 2 and 3. So, Derek, let's jump into that. Regions 2 and 3. I'm going to go ahead and get my sword on, man. We're going to jump in 6A.
Yeah, so Region Two. I mean, so you're saying so if it ended today, I mean, we'd probably have to just take a look at the top 8 seeds right now. I mean,
Yep.
that could change up based on maybe a team lower winning its district. Is that how that works? I guess.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, just the top 8. I mean, you're looking at in 6A Region Two. You've got Armwood, Bartow, Kissimmee Osceola, who's putting together a nice year, and they were down, but man, they've played some tough teams, and they have some big wins on the board. Plant City Durant, Tampa Plant, Vieira, Southlake, and Melbourne. Is that what you're seeing also, Preston?
That's also what I'm saying. Does anybody jump out to you like, wow, I would not have expected that, or does that look pretty standard, pretty kosher to you?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, yes and no. I'm not sure. Potentially, I don't know if this holds up necessarily
Yeah.
without analyzing one team's schedule throughout. It would be hard to say. But and I don't want to throw a jinx or get any team all hyped up on me. But I could see some potential changes in that. I would be curious of seedings. How that would come off. You've got plants sitting there at, for example, as a 5th seed just in this situation. I can assure you they would not want, well, they'd be playing Durant as a 4 seed.
Right.
But, I'm just curious of how this would play out. But I could guarantee you, like a Bartow would not want to match up or tangle with a plant right now.
Right.
Even though their record it may be 2-4, you get one of these teams in the Bay Area that starts putting it together at the back half of the season, and some of these teams can be very dangerous. Just looking at that, but yeah, Armwood's got to be the obvious heavy favorite out of this region. Just looking at it, and that would be my guess. But looking at a Durant Plant, I mean that'd be a heck of a first round matchup if that played out right there. You know just two local teams. I'm not sure how that. Again, I don't know how do they reseed or do they
They,
do it based on
they,
area?
yeah, they won't reseed until the final four. All right.
Okay.
So right now, I expect Arnwood to hold that top position in region two. Now let's go back to Plant because Plant is interesting. Plant started off the season at 3-0, and then they suffered 3 straight losses. And just like any team, they're probably not totally healthy in that 3-loss stretch. But regardless, the team itself had 3 straight losses. But they got a chance to really get some quality wins here because they'll play Berkeley Prep. They'll play Sickles, which is a district game, and then they'll play Steinbrenner. So if they can go 3-0 throughout that last stretch, they've got a really good chance to position themselves to move up a seed or two. Now, Durant, same thing. If this holds still, a Plant Durant game would be absolutely fun to watch because styles make fights, and I think Durant versus Plant will be fun. Absolutely.
Well, I tell you, one team not to overlook in this bunch is Kissimmee Osceola.
Yeah.
They are one of those traditional powers. They've just been good for a long time. They had a little bit of a dip, I believe, last year, and but they have put together some quality wins and quality losses, if you want to call them that. I mean, they took Jones to overtime, and Jones is undefeated. They played Lake Mary early on in the year, and Lake Mary's an undefeated team, 2 of the best teams in the state right there. And so those are their losses, but they've got, they got a win against Melbourne, a pretty significant win, 48-7. Played St. Cloud with a bunch of talent over there. They beat them pretty good, and they beat Southdade and Treasure Coast. So they've got some quality wins, and I would not be shocked. They play Vieira coming up, Apopka, Lake Wales, and Lakewood. So I mean, they've got that's a tough schedule. But I tell you, if Osceola could slide through that and went out, you got to put some mad respect on them if they can pull something like that off. So that'd be interesting to watch.
So let me throw this at you, Derek. Right now, let's just hold still at that 1-8, right?
Yep.
What would be the most interesting game if You got Arnwood versus Melbourne, 1 versus 8. 2 versus 7 will be Bartow South Lake. 3 versus 6 will be Osceola versus Vieira. And then 4 versus 5 will be Durant versus Plant.
The only answer is that Durant versus Plant, and it's not just because it's a 4v5. Like I say, you're gonna, to me, Osceola is gonna play Vieira anyway coming up, so that's already gonna have been played. So if you're asking me on those 4 matchups, I'm wanting to see Durant Plant at Durant all day long, and they play at the higher seed. Is that correct, Preston?
They'll play at the higher seed, correct.
Yeah, man, what an atmosphere! The only answer to that question is Plant going to Durant to play that first round game if
All
that
right.
happens.
So here we go. Look at Durant's last 3 games. They've got a struggling Bloomingdale team that they'll host. They'll then host Tampa Bay Tech, and then excuse me. They'll travel to Bloomingdale. They'll host Tampa Bay Tech. They'll travel to Bartow. All right. And then Bartow currently is number 2 in Region 2. So Durant has a really good shot of jumping up a number of spots because quality wins, obviously, a quality win would be Tech, quality win would be Bartow. So, all right, let's play this game, Derek.
That's what I'm saying. I think that is going to shift a lot. When you asked earlier, that was one of the teams. I mean, there are some teams that may not be on this come playoff time, but we'll see. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
If they can win 2 out of 3, they win 2 out of 3. Durant wins 2 out of 3. Which 2 do they win?
That's a
loaded. I know that's a loaded question.
Well, with no disrespect to Bloomingdale or Bartow, but right now, Tech's playing some big boy football. Tech I would not want to tangle with. So if I'm picking basically who a loss could pop up out of those 3, I'm saying Tech. So
I'd be interested to see. We'll count Bloomingdale as a W. I'd be interested because Tech has to go to Durant. That's a fun football environment. Mm-hmm. But Durant has to go to Bartow. Mm-hmm. That's a fun football environment.
Yep.
Oh, man. I think, I don't know. I think it would be, I want to say, traveling to Polk County, traveling to Bartow would be harder to get a W than hosting Tech in your backyard on your own field. I think that's the only thing I can go off of because Tech's good, Bartow's good. So now you got to split hairs. Which one's easier to get a win out of? Is it on the road, an hour and a half away, or is it hosting versus a good team, right? So that could be the cap. That is a really good last 3 games for Durant that could really jump them in the rankings mightily.
Yep. Well, and hey, while we're talking about that, let's just grab maybe 2 or 3 teams under them that are in that Region 2 also that could elevate up into that group. You got Bloomingdale. Bloomingdale might be a little bit of a sleeper team sitting there. Out of the group, outside of who's showing up in that Region 2. Look at that. Who would your sleeper be out of that group if you had to pick one? Would it be Lake Minneola? Would it be a Bloomingdale group?
For me, it could only be Lake Minneola. Wharton just is not the same team. Riverview doesn't have the strength right now. I don't like either one of them over Davenport or Lake Minneola. So if we're looking at Lake Mill, the next in line, you're looking at Melbourne. You're looking at Lake Minneola, Bloomingdale, Davenport, Wharton, Riverview. Mm-hmm. I'm going to easily go Lake Minneola before the next 4.
Okay. All right. Well, if then maybe Lake Minneola and Bloomingdale are those 2 schools right there that could replace a Vieira For example, if Vieira gets beat, I think it was Osceola that plays them, or if one of those teams pops out, then the team, I guess, one of the two teams I think on that list that could replace them would be Bloomingdale or Lake Minneola.
And I'm
So
just putting
that's
I'm putting up Lake Minneola's schedules. They're 2-4 right now, but I know they played some good teams. They've got above 6 point in their strength of schedule. So I want to see who they played. They started the season off with Manatee with a big loss. Then they lost to Vanguard, Manatee, and then Ocala Vanguard. That's two good ones off the rip.
yep, two
I don't
powerhouses.
I don't know necessarily what's going on with Hayden City, but Hayden City must be a well-improved team. They struggled for a while, but I need to check out and see what Hayden City is doing. So they beat Hayden City, but then come back and they lost to Lake Gibson. Then they beat Davenport. Then they lost big time to South Sumter. So Lake Minneola just seems like, it's not a great pick for me, but that is a hell of a schedule. But even if like the big time teams on this schedule, they got blasted by them.
Yep.
Like it wasn't competitive.
Yeah, and one of the things that I always lean to, and it always goes back to, I mean, I live in Pasco, but I don't want to get in trouble. But anytime a Hillsboro team plays a Pinellas or Pasco or outside, I don't want to put Polk in that category, obviously, but usually the depth on the line usually comes into play there. I don't know. I think there's a little bit more depth that Bloomingdale may be tapping into that gives them a slight advantage, but we'll see. They got a tough schedule coming up. This game against Durant probably could be what determines, if they make it or not. So we'll see. But it's going to be interesting coming down to the wire these last few.
Strongest schedule in 6A before we get off of 6A and 6A Region 2, moving to Region 3. Toughest schedule right now is Buellholz, followed by Nice, followed by East Lake, followed by Plant, and then Navarre. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
All right. That's the top 5 in all of Class 6A. All right. We want to move to Region 3, Derek?
Yep.
All right. So Region 3, right now, if the playoffs started today, Wiregrass Ranch will be your 1 seed, followed by Palmetto. Mitchell will be your 3 seed. West Boca at 4. Parish Community at 5. Leonard at 6. Largo at 7. Lakewood Ranch at 8. So your matchups will be Wiregrass Ranch versus Lakewood Ranch. Palmetto versus Largo. Mitchell versus Leonard, which is interesting. And then West Boca versus Parish. Thoughts on those 8 teams, D?
Well, interesting. Yeah, I mean, you got Parish. What seed would Parish be?
Parish will be your 5 seed in Region 3.
Man, you've got a 5th seed in Parish and a 6th seed for in Leonard. Man, I mean those are some quality teams on the back end of that. So the matchups would be West Boca against Parish.
The matchup would be West Boca versus Parish. Yep.
And that's a long travel for Parish community, but that's an interesting matchup because I mean for them to be a 5 and Leonard be a 6, I mean those are 2 solid teams on that back end of that bracket right there. So Mitchell against Leonard. I mean, what did I just get done saying? I mean, when you have a Hillsboro team going up against, and this is just traditionally, and it's been changing a little bit, but in the past, when you have a Hillsboro County team going up against a Pasco team, it usually you got to lean toward the Hillsboro team. So seeing a Leonard as a lower seed, potentially playing a Mitchell, that could be a very interesting matchup out of that group. I think you're probably right on the same page with me thinking that too.
Yeah, they're saying right now Mitchell has played a better schedule than Leonard. by about 3 points, if you will, both in the negatives. But they're saying Mitchell has played a more competitive schedule than Leonard. Let me look at Leonard's schedule and see what they have open up. And credit to Leonard, they went 6-0 before the most recent loss. I think was Plant City, and they lost big. What we kind of expected Plant City to do what Plant City does. Let me look and see what Leonard looks like for the rest of the year, and see if they can go up or down based on their schedule. See if they have any quality wins left. Mm-hmm. So Leonard right now, and the good thing for Leonard, they're 2-0 in district. All right, and if they win the district, they're in regardless. So their district opponents, Palmetto, Parish Community, Lakewood Ranch, Gateway. They're 2-0. They have already played. They played Gateway. They won 46-6, and they played Lakewood Ranch, and a quality win against the Lakewood Ranch team, 27-22. They got Parish Community on the 18th, and then they follow up. They host Parish Community, then they'll travel to Palmetto for the last 2 district games. Okay, so last 3 games for Leonard: Parish Community, Palmetto, Chamberlain. Can Leonard go 3-0 versus those 3 opponents?
Yep, I mean that positively can. So yeah, I mean if that holds, that'll be an interesting matchup, and then taking a look at Mitchell, if they can hold, I mean they obviously coming up, they've got Wiregrass, their next opponent, so that's that game will determine it, where these seedings match up. I mean that's gonna be a heck of a game right there, Wiregrass against Mitchell, man. That is a nice little matchup.
I think if Leonard does not make the playoffs this year, it's going to be just a huge blow to a school that has just gained so much traction. They fought through some bad years. They had a lot of excitement built up, a lot of confidence built up. I personally need them to make the playoffs. So, hey, Leonard, I need you guys. I think if they can go 1-2 for the last 3 games, depending on which one they win, then they'll grab a playoff spot. All right. But if they go 0-3, they might be out of that top 8. All right. Now let's go back to, you were talking Wiregrass, correct? Wiregrass and Mitchell. Wiregrass, solid schedule, solid strength of schedule for a Pasco team. Let's look what we got. Look what we got left. Wiregrass Ranch.
Man, that's a big game. Oh man,
that's a massive game. 2 undefeated.
They close at River Ridge too.
Yes. Okay.
So they still got some beef on there. I mean, they still got some. Yeah.
Now
it's a heck of a schedule coming up.
Now they'll have to play Mitchell and Lando Lakes because those are district opponents. Okay. It depends on what's going to happen with the hurricane situation, whether or not they're going to lose one of these games. I know there are a few schedule adjustments that are coming out. Some teams are bumping out one of their non-district games. They're going from 4 remaining games to 3 remaining games. So there could be some scheduling changes. However, we do know they have to play their district opponents. So at the very least, they'll have Mitchell and Lando Lakes to play. And Lando Lakes is better than people give credit for. 2 athletic quarterbacks for both teams in Mitchell with Caden Thomas, and then Wiregrass Ranch quarterback. Okay, they got 2 athletic quarterbacks. Both have really good running backs. Maybe if you want to toss it up in the air, one running back crew may be better than the other, but they're both tops in the county with Mitchell and Wiregrass. So I like this matchup a lot. Now, who can defend? If I'm going to split hairs, I'm going Wiregrass because of their defense. I think Mitchell's going to make plays on offense, but I think Wiregrass Ranch defense, as consistent as they have been, might make one more play than Mitchell's offense in order to get the win.
Yeah, no doubt. No, and let me also, I wanted to kind of go back just briefly on Leonard. Yeah. They can go 3-0. But
Yeah.
man, that is a tough Palmetto. We've been talking about them since week 2, I think. And so that's going to be a nice matchup, and then Parish Community also to close out with. But hey, that's their opportunity to just close out strong, make a statement, and so yeah, that's a strong end of the season right there. Those games, so we'll see what happens on Leonard's side. But let's see.
Now, what's your favorite matchup of that 8, Derek? Because I'm looking at Largo versus Palmetto. If the playoffs started today, you get Largo at Palmetto, or you get Mitchell, you get Leonard at Mitchell, or you get Parrish at West Boca. Which one do you like out of those 3?
Leonard Leonard against Mitchell.
Yeah,
But also the thought of Parrish having to travel across the state and go to West Boca, if that holds out, that's an interesting matchup. Anytime you got to anytime you got to travel long distances in that early, that first round matchup, it's tough, but that would be a heck of a matchup because Parrish is having such a great season this year. So either one of those two, I think.
that'd be fun. I like Largo versus Palmetto. Both of those teams are traditionally very talent rich. So I would love to see Largo at Palmetto. But Leonard's just kind of like that team. You're kind of rooting for them. You're rooting for them to do some good things. So if this holds and Leonard keeps a playoff spot, Leonard at Mitchell, Leonard going like that may be the farthest travel that they would have to have across those 2 counties. That's almost as further south you can get. Hillsborough County is Leonard High School. They may be further than Sumner. I'm not sure. But Leonard's down there. Leonard all the way to now you got to go Pasco County up to Trinity area with Mitchell. That's gonna be a drive. So definitely interested Leonard versus Mitchell. Now let's just have a little fun with it. Take both of those regions, Derek. We're gonna cross them over. Region 1, Region 2 versus Region 3, and ultimately it gets to Final Four. They cross over anyways. However, if you could take all 16 of those teams, put them all in one pot, what game would you want to see? Who versus who? No matter the region. I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
How about we take an Armwood matchup against Palmetto, who we've been talking about quite a bit? What do you think?
I think I would go Onward versus Osceola.
Okay, yeah, I crossed over to the region and picked one out of each. But yeah, no, the Kissimmee Osceola Armwood game, yeah, that would be a nice little matchup, no doubt.
I think that would be a nice matchup, but I think even better now looking at it might be Durant Palmetto.
All right.
I just think Durant style kind of sneaks up on teams. Mm-hmm. And I think Palmetto is talented and overachieving, if you will, with all the trials they've had in the last 3 or 4 years. I think people would root for both of those teams. You'd have a very good fan base. It'll be a good football environment. And I would play at Palmetto. I would take Durant, take them on the road, let them see that Bradenton, area, that Manatee County football environment, because Palmetto is an absolutely fun environment. They do a really good job down there. So Durant at Palmetto, I think that would be fun. Yeah. I think all the makings for a great game.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Totally agree.
All right. Well, look, we're gonna tap out of here with everybody in the state of Florida. Please be safe. Get all your hurricane preparations there. If you got to evacuate, listen to the warnings. Get out of there. But we will be back for the show next week. We'll have Matt with us. Any final words, D?
No, man. I think you got it covered. Let's hope this hurricane gets in and out. And Friday morning we wake up to some 79-degree high sunny day. So we'll see.
All right, we're out. I can see that.